been posted. Suppose while everybody's getting ready, we can have a moment of silence. All right. Chair, would you do roll call, please?
Crosby. Here. Here. Jake. Here. Gail. Here.
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 Craig. Eating. Here.
All right. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Huge bite.
Nudging her, you gotta say it, you gotta say it.
I am saying it. I would never not.
All right, moving on to, do we have any citizens' comments? Okay.
He's just turning his mic on.
We have that in the finance facilities portion of the agenda.
Okay, that's fine.
Should she speak now or later?
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
you can come up now.
Come and talk.
Would you like to come up now, please?
Jeremy Keys. Oh,
Okay.
I don't have her signed in though.
I think that,
Is there two of them up there?
Is there two
It
sheets?
was probably.
no, there's just one, but I've invited both of them because they had concerns, so
Okay.
they're here on invite here, open invite, so
Gotcha.
Lisa, do you want to go first here?
Is that mic on?
I'm sorry, you're Lisa, okay. Okay,
Tom, is that mic on?
So you
yep,
guys have,
my mic is on.
you guys have,
Because it's an open meeting, you have to talk into the mic.
Shoot, really.
you guys have
How about
three-
now?
You guys have three. Yeah, you're good. You have
Yes.
3 minutes. I'll give you a 30-second warning. Okay.
Okay,
Tell me when you're ready.
got it.
So hold on, hey guys, I guess
sorry.
I'll kind of just give some context here to like what they're looking for, and then we can hear from them. So the first request is for a bus stop to be added to the Field Park subdivision. Right now, so at Eagleville Elementary here, you kind of get some context at Field Park High School is the other green area over here. Here's MacArthur Drive. Eagleville Elementary is a non-traditional school, as we all know. It has one defined bus route. We used to have two, but light ridership, we condensed that down to one route at the start of last school year. And then we have a second bus that does pod stop pickups. It will go to Clarendon Avenue Elementary, pick up students who want to attend Eagleville. They got to get themselves to Clarendon. Then it goes to Rolling Hills and Section and does the same thing there. And then it goes down County Road I and has a couple of pod stops there along County Road I. So between that pod stop route and the defined route, those are the two routes that we have. So the request here is in lieu, or I should say in addition to stopping at Clarendon, is to have another stop somewhere in the subdivision here, correct? Did I got that
Correct.
summarized there? So,
Do you,
no, I'm sorry.
do you know the average child pickup of like on each of those stops, how many children you're picking up at each stop?
I don't have that information. I can grab that information and bring it, but I don't have the pod stop info here.
Just to put into reference, this would be a pickup of 5 children total because there's more than that, 2 more, so 7 total. So it's a decent chunk. Lisa Klausing has 4 kids that go right now, plus she'll have another one in a couple of years, and then mine just started, so she'll be there for quite a while.
So I guess the question for the board is, do you want to add another stop? That is ultimately, I don't have that authority when Eagleville busing gets designed by the school board. The school board ultimately has the say in the additions and subtractions, so I didn't unilaterally just say, yep, more stops, because that's for you to decide. So
So are we amending our agenda right now? Because we're supposed to be in citizens' comments.
I think right now, are we fast forwarding to the one portion of the Finance Facilities Committee where we're going through the
Or do we
transportation
just let them
concerns?
speak at?
We're just letting them speak for citizens' comments on this.
Okay.
3 minutes?
Oh, are we gonna go?
Yeah.
Sure.
So then the other part of our concern was that we can't, oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, so we have 5 kids or plus 7 that, or 2 more that will be using the bus stop. And our biggest concern is that we can't send them solo, even though there are kids that are old enough to walk by themselves, because Rochester is super early in the morning. You have the sun glare coming in, cars can't see little kids, so we don't feel comfortable sending them solo to the Clarendon bus stop.
And I know Clarendon has a crossing guard that they use in the morning, but by the time the Eagleville bus comes through, the crossing guard isn't there anymore. And I know I was told years ago that there was just pod stops for this bus, but I found out last year it actually stops in Miners 1. There was a stop added there, which the same thing, the distance isn't too far, but if my kids were to walk from that one, they'd have to go either down LO or down NN, which is not safe for them to walk on.
In addition, she has a child with he has ADHD, so he has a little bit of issues on the bus, but so we can't really send him solo either to walk. Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything else. I don't think so.
I just feel that we have enough kids to have a stop there because, I mean, I know a lot of the other bus stops I've seen, it's little 1 kids, 2 kids, and it's like there's a good amount of kids that can use it and be able to walk there safely and not have, 3, 4 other cars all going to Clarendon. And it's, especially since it does stop one neighborhood up, I'm wondering, it's like if they can have, the stop there, then what's the difference for our neighborhood, to be able to drop those kids off easier.
I think that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Unless you had any questions about it that you wanted to ask us.
This is just citizens' comments. We
Okay.
usually don't address any of those.
Okay, this is our first one.
It's okay. Thank you, though. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Jeremy Keys?
All right, and I'll provide a little context
yeah,
here.
please.
So we have a request to add we're talking middle school, high school route. So to add for 7th grade student, we have a middle school, high school bus that comes down County Road L. So you can see that we have Clark Street there, 164, and then we have County Road L here. So as the bus comes down here and picks up multiple students, there's 6 stops along County Road L. So in a lot of instances, and I'd say almost all of the instances for elementary schools, so for like Kutzendorf Court and Klein Lane, when we have elementary age students, we will take our bus route and enter in, pick up students, come back, and continue on down the road. For grades 7, 12, we don't do that. We've traditionally, and we have several, bus stops similar in nature on multiple other routes on Highway 83 on other county roads, where we have our students that will walk to the county road. And this bus stop here occurs here on Parr Avenue, Kutzendorf Court. And Mr. Keys here has a house somewhere in this vicinity here, and his 7th grade student walks between 2 and 3/10 of a mile here and get picked up. And the request is to enter in to pick up into this neighborhood there. Did I get that mostly?
Yep.
Okay. So I'll turn it over to you.
Away from my time hack. In the meantime, thanks for hearing me, and your salad looks good.
You're up.
All right, thank you. So my student is Matthew Keys. He's 12 years old. He is currently the only solo student that is getting picked up at this bus stop at this time. There were students before that were over at Parr. They are no longer, they're getting driven or they're driving themselves at this point. So right now it's a 12-year-old kid that stands at the edge of the bus stop at early in the mornings with the sun coming up, glaring, on Janesville Road, 55 miles an hour. I don't know if anybody can raise their hand right now that they actually do 55 miles an hour on Janesville. I highly doubt it. There's no sidewalks, nowhere for him to stand, and he's up there on the corner all by himself. So granted, right now we've been driving him back and forth, But I see no reason why for one student, the bus can't come in, stop on Kunzendorf and Klein like it has been doing in the past. You know, it'd be a little less of a walk for them. There's not that much traffic there. And I need to add as well that my daughter, Emily Keys, she's in high school now, she almost got hit twice last year by cars at that bus stop with other students there. So this is an extreme concern of mine. I don't want to see any student get hit, let alone my own child. And I see no reason why, you know, an additional mileage added to the route, we're talking less than 0.2 of a mile for the bus to come in. You know, we timed it, and to drop Matthew off and pick him up was like 20 seconds. It's adding to the bus stop. That's it. That's all we're asking for. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. Yeah. Moving on to consent agenda, and we're looking for the approval of the meeting minutes from September 25th, 2023. Any discussion or questions? All right. Consent agenda is approved. We don't have any recognitions, presentations. We don't have any, no policy. Moving on to personnel topics.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, Rachel.
Excited to talk to you about something besides just like no hires, no recognitions, retirements. So hi, we're going to talk about the employee handbook first. So we're in the process of updating our employee handbook. The last time that handbook was updated was in 2018, and we have since had several of our board policies that have been updated. In addition, there have been several addendums to the handbook, and so we're looking to just condense those addendums, update the policies to just have really a one-stop shop for our professional staff to know what it is that they're expected to do as employees of the Mukwonago School District. And so over the course of this past month, I've been making some revisions. We're going to be presenting a draft of that handbook to our teaching staff for their feedback. We're obviously going to be vetting that with our legal counsel as well to make sure that we're not doing anything in violation of our board policies. And then we'll be presenting that first draft to you at the upcoming November board meeting.
I have a question. How often should we be revising that?
I'll let Dr. Cook actually take that.
Yeah, so what we're aiming to do in this handbook is to essentially make it so that for small technical things, it automatically gets updated. So the process that Rachel's in right now is going to be partially to hyperlink our policies to the actual handbook, so that when the board updates, for instance, FMLA, because the federal government said FMLA needs to be updated, the handbook then automatically goes with it. So I think once this big review is done, you know, it will self-update year by year, but if there was a change in what the board expected of us as employees, or if there was a change in what the state or the federal government said, we would be bringing that up to you. Usually you're looking at it every year. It may not come back to the board for reapproval every year, but we need to get to the place where the policies at least match the handbook.
Thank you.
And our staff are expected to sign off on that handbook every year. So again, just making sure that it's relevant to what they're being asked to do is important. Any other questions? All right, so then second is the Vision Keeper recognition.
Rachel, can you talk into the microphone a little more, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yep. So we are, just gonna go like that. So we are constantly looking for ways to obviously increase the culture and climate in the district. And so we are bringing back the Vision Keeper recognition. This is a recognition that awards staff who are bringing the vision of the Mukwonago School District to life. So principals can nominate any staff member. It doesn't have to be a teacher. It can be a custodian. It can be an administrative assistant, somebody who is demonstrating these qualities in their everyday actions. And these awards are given one time per month, and I go to the schools. I'll deliver that recognition along with the reason why the staff member was awarded the recognition. And we're really excited to start. The first round is actually in October, and I believe we already have almost 6 or 7 staff members who have been nominated for this recognition. And then what we're looking to do is at the end of the year, hold some sort of a social event where anybody who has been awarded this recognition can come together for some sort of, again, a social, just welcome, not welcome, but social event where they can be recognized.
I like it.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Student learning.
Good evening.
Good
So
evening.
we are halfway through presentations of our goals that our schools have set for the year. And so tonight we're going to have Ron Schlicht from Rolling Hills and Sean Waller from Big Bend here to present their goals. Just quickly before they go tonight, there's been a few questions of board members regarding the work around a guaranteed and viable curriculum. And so I just want to make sure to address that with all of you, answer any questions that you have on that, because that is part of a district goal this year, and you see that trickling down to buildings choosing that and putting that as a focus. And so the reason that we are concentrating on that is as we move to the PLC structure, which again is the 4 questions that I've mentioned to you before, everybody being laser focused on what it is our students should know and be able to do, how, looking at assessments and deciding how we're gonna know when they can do those things, what we're doing when they aren't learning the way that we would want them to and showing proficiency the way we would want them to, and then what are we doing if they already know it. And that any conversation in our collaborative spaces are really concentrating on discussing student data and looking at things that way. It is impossible to have those conversations and get down to the level of consistently reacting throughout the year to formative assessments and summative assessments that students are getting, and bringing those to the table and having discussions about what do we need to reteach, what do we need to return to again, when do we need to put students in interventions. If we don't have a laser focus and an agreement on what it is students should know and be able to do, and that we have an idea of what the proficiency looks like in all of that. So for instance, I was with a team today, and we're finally at a point with ELA where I feel like we have 3-11, a pretty solid, guaranteed and viable curriculum in 3 through 11. So now our next steps are to bring together a group of 3 through 11 teachers and start talking about the proficiencies and making sure that we don't have a situation where in 8th grade we get students to a point, our middle school is showing unbelievable growth right now in ELA, that we're not getting to a point with our 8th graders, and then we take them to freshman year and we assume that they don't know things that they know, and we're teaching them the same skills they already know, because what happens then, the kids become incredibly bored and we lose them. And then we say, oh, they're not growing, and they're not growing because we're teaching them things that they already learned in 8th grade. So for us to get to those steps as a district and really make sure that we are doing vertical alignment, that we have identified proficiencies, we really need to make sure that every chemistry teacher in our system has agreed upon what it is that kids are going to know and be able to do, that every 3rd grade teacher in our system have agreed upon that for math, for English. So that is the reason that we are doing a push for that. Questions at all about that?
I was going to say, I like to see that because my son was just telling me the other day, maybe it was because came from Rolling Hills, but he's learning a lot of the same things right now in 7th grade, and he's getting bored.
Yep.
So
that's part of, once we've decided for each grade level, we can have those conversations, and they're really important conversations to have as a system. So I get that it could sound like, you know, what are we doing and why are we doing this? But to me, it's absolutely essential work we're doing as a system to get to the point where we analyze data, we're doing something with it then. Okay, so Dr. Runschlick is going to go from Rolling Hills.
All right, good evening, everybody. So just to start out with our goals, we actually have 2 goals at Rolling Hills. The first goal actually has 2 parts. It's both focused on math and literacy, and then our second goal is more behavioral. And so just to give you some background, we did want to make sure it was connected to the district strategic plan. So just as Stephanie just talked about having a guaranteed and viable curriculum, we wanted to make sure that our goal at Rolling Hills was connected to that. And the reason we chose to align our goal with this part of the district strategic plan is based on the results from our state report card. The most recent state report card that we have access to basically says that Rolling Hills significantly exceeds expectations with an achievement score that's the same or better than 94% of other elementary schools in the state, and for students on track to graduate was the same or better than 97% of other schools in the state. And this was based on the 21-22 school report card because the results from last year's report card have not come out yet. They have not been released to the public. So when we write this goal, it was based on the previous year's report card. Where we fell short in that report was in growth. And so we saw that we were only better than 72% of elementary schools in the state. And so what that tells us is we're a very high achieving school, but with our high achievers, we're not necessarily growing them. And so we wanted to make sure that we were focused on growth rather than achievement. And so our goal, by the end of the 23-24 academic school year, all students at Rolling Hills will demonstrate a minimum of a year's worth of growth in both ELA and math, utilizing our district assessments. And just to give you a little context, of our nearly 490 students last year, 16% came from outside the district or were open enrolled. Approximately 14% of our students have disabilities and 11% are economically disadvantaged. And so when, again, you're a very high achieving school, it's more difficult to have students continue to grow at high rates. And so that being said, we're very committed to having all of our students grow, which is why we chose that goal, is to continue to grow students. So then a lot of times what happens is our goals from year to year stay the same, but the action steps that we're using change because our students change and sometimes our curriculum changes. And so the action steps that we're using to get to the end result has to change. And so again, as a district this year, we're focused on the PLC process. And we want our teachers to become familiar with the 4 major questions. And so basically I have them highlighted there in our action steps, and each of our action steps relates to a different question of the PLC process. So question 1 is, what do we want students to know? It's what we expect them to know, which is our guaranteed and viable curriculum. Question 2 is, what are we going to do if, or how do we know if they've learned it? So that focuses on our assessments. And then the third and the fourth question is, what are we going to do if students don't know it yet in terms of remediation? And what are we going to do if students already know it, in which case they need enrichment? And so that really focuses on what we do for students during our win time. It's called What I Need. It's a specific part of every grade level's time throughout the day, where teachers create specific expectations, goals for students, and give them specific tasks to work on that challenge them. And so I really asked staff both last year and this year to think of win time not as busy work time, but as challenge time, and that every student, no matter where they are in the curricular course of their careers, is to make sure that they're challenged and continuing to grow. And so that's what we're really focusing on, so that the tasks are differentiated to each student's ability level. They're purposeful and they're engaging. And so that's what we do besides our Tier 1 instruction. So any questions on goal number 1, academic goal?
I think we're good.
All right. Goal number 2 is related to the district's utilizing best practices to support and enhance student social and emotional growth. So the rationale for our goal in goal number 2 is based on our Infinite Campus behavioral records. In the 21-22 school year, we had 68 events recorded as physical altercations. And then last year, we were able to reduce that to 27 physical altercations. And that is a 60% reduction in physically aggressive behavior. And that has a lot to do with us implementing zones of regulation as a school last year. And so we wanted to take what we learned from that and how successful it was and apply it to all areas of aggressive behavior or major incidents. And so we had 75 events last year that we recorded as a major disciplinary infraction, and that includes theft, bullying, harassment, inappropriate behavior, vandalism, in addition to physical aggression. And so we want to take what kids have learned and what the staff has learned about the zones of regulation and now apply that across the board, not only to physical altercations, but to all major incidents. So every week our pupil service team meets, and that team consists of myself, the school psychologist, the counselor, our interventionist, our instructional coach, and our ESSER interventionist, and together we analyze data that could be either behavioral or academic in nature, and based on these conversations, we also determine what students may need in terms of academic or behavioral support. So all students are taught the Raptor Way expectations, that's our PBIS, and these are then reinforced by students earning ROAR cards for demonstrating how to be respectful, responsible, and safe at our school. One thing that I really pride ourselves in at Rolling Hills is I really believe that our staff believes that all students are our students. They don't just care about the students that are in their class. They care about all the students that are in a grade level, all the students across grade levels. And so when one student is struggling, when one student is making poor decisions, we come together as a staff and really work hard to help that individual and then recognize the other students who are making really good choices. Because ultimately, when we recognize positive behavior, what ends up happening is success breeds success, and so other kids end up wanting to be recognized for that positive behavior as well. So when we look at our action steps towards that goal, again, we want to celebrate when students are successful and help students that are struggling to make good choices. Sometimes students are very impulsive and react in a negative way, and we want to show our students that when they react positively, there's a positive outcome and positive recognition for doing the right thing instead of continually penalizing them or penalizing the negative behavior. So some of the action steps we're doing is continuing to implement zones of regulation, but now we've moved it into our sensory room. We did a review of the zones with our students, and actually this year we had several staff members put the zones on the students' desks, and basically the way zones works is it's an emotional tool that helps students tell the teacher what emotional state they're currently in. Are they in red, yellow, blue, or green? And they can put a little marker on their desk, and so teachers can identify right away when kids come into the school in the morning if a student is struggling, if they're upset, if they're happy, if they're sad, if they're nervous. And it really opens the door for really good conversations with kids and getting them on track and getting them into the green zone, because that's where we know they're successful when they can learn. And that's it.
So Dr. Schlick, it seems like your go back to that one slide, 27 events. It seems low compared to some of the other schools.
Yeah. Again,
Congratulations, but
thank you.
Why is that lower than some of the other schools?
Well, it's hard for me to comment on that because I'm not at the other schools, but I think again, I go back to
Mr. Waller, but go ahead. Go ahead.
Again, I just go back to the fact that we've got a really good staff, we've got really supportive parents, and we've got really good kids. And I think we all are on the same page when it comes to expectations. And when we believe that all kids are our kids, we truly act on that. And when we need a teacher to be a mentor for a child that they had 3 years ago, our staff is willing to step up and say, I definitely will do that. And we run the check-in, check-out program so students can choose a staff member that they would like to check in and check out with 3 times throughout the day. And that staff member then recognizes their behavior in some way. So it's just between you and them. And it's just a fantastic place to be. And that's all I can say is that we've got a really good staff that really buy in to the process, and our parents are supportive, and our kids just enjoy being at school.
Any other questions for Dr. Schlicht? All right, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
In agreeing with everything he said, I think an important point too is that you've heard pretty much almost every building, elementary building, have a behavioral goal because we do recognize the connection between behaviors and academics, and that many of them are repeating some of the things that Rolling Hills has already done. And so we can't talk report card data publicly yet, but we do have them. We've seen them as a district, and I ask you to remember Rolling Hills and their work around zones of regulation and their behavioral work that I think really is about a year ahead of the other buildings in the district, because we saw success there when we see their academic data results also in another month, because it will definitely parallel the importance of a goal like that and concentrating on that as a staff, because then we see it in the academics too. Before Mr. Waller presents for Big Bend, just wanted to point out one thing. You're going to see a kind of a different goal measurement from Big Bend than we've seen from the other buildings, and so just wanted to go through and explain that a little bit. Basically, as buildings are making a decision how to do their measurement for a school goal, there's a couple decisions that a building can make, and we have seen very, very similar ones to this point in the presentations, which would be all of our students are going to achieve that. We want to see a year's worth of growth in all of our children. And the idea behind that is that we're going to set up action steps. We're going to work really hard. Realistically, as Rolling Hills presented, we might say all of our kids and get to 72% of them. The other direction a building can go, and you're going to see this with Big Bend, is that we actually look where we're at and we create an attainable goal to keep people moving and give maybe celebrations that come a little bit faster. So you're going to hear Sean talk about, instead of all students, we were at 55%, we want to be at 60% and something at the end of the year. It is not that once they get to 60% that they stop counting and go, okay, we're done with our goal for the year. Obviously, if Big Bend can get to 80%, yay. But it's just a difference, and one that I respect as the director of student learning, both. It's just a difference in a staff, and I think how you present to that, and a little bit how the work is tackled in how we do the data measurement. So I just didn't want that to be confusing when you see the data measurements from Big Bend that are going to look a little bit different.
Thank you. Yeah, so there's some things that I'm not going to repeat just because I don't want to echo everything that Ron said, and I know the Packer game is starting pretty soon. So a lot of similarities with what we're doing. We do have a math goal. We have an ELA goal. We did not have a behavioral goal this year just because we had two key members of our pupil service department with our school psych and our school counselor that were just starting out. So we do have, I think we only had one altercation physically in our building, so I wish I was kidding about that, but we definitely have a need to make sure that our students, and we do PBIS assemblies, we have a lot of things in place like them. If we want to look at goal number 1, 60% of the students at Big Bend will meet or exceed growth, and that's according to the 50th percentile. Again, let me just kind of explain what that is. So a percentile, a growth percentile, if you get a score of 50, that means you're hitting average growth, 1 year of growth for that student. So that, of course, is what we want for all of our students. Anything above that number 50 would be exceeding it. Anything below would be, the closer to 50, be slightly not exceeding or meeting that growth. And then closer to 0, you have a lot of work to do. So having said that, our students at Big Bend, we want to make sure that all students are accounted for. Last year's ELA score was based on the TDA, text-dependent analysis, and that's basically where you read a passage and you write according, you respond to it. That was a goal that was mostly for our 3rd through 6th grade as far as what's measured, because that's what's measured on the forward exam. We start that process early on. It's not just a 3rd through 6th grade thing. So our goal, or our baseline last year, was 54% of the students grew by that 50 or more on the growth percentiles. This year, we're looking at 60% of our students meeting that expected year of growth. So that's our ELA goal. To accomplish that, some of the things that we're looking to do is we're trying to find opportunities to create opportunities within the language arts block to meet with small groups or individuals. We identify those students through our assessments, a lot of different assessments that we'll use. Advanced word studies, some training that we've done throughout the summer, spelling connections, and also crossing content areas into social studies. Any opportunities that we can work with our students and try to get them to understand what they're reading, we're going to take advantage of that. Also, we learned that you can learn best, you can instruct best if you're working together as a team. The PLC process is something that we've prioritized in the district. A lot of different grade levels, we call them collaborative teams, get together. They have different instructional methods of a way to present materials to the class. And sometimes when you are on your own island and you're trying to find the best instructional strategy, that doesn't work. And so we're trying to pick each other's brain, create common formative assessments, find out where we need to spend a little bit more time and make sure that we hit those learning targets. By the way, last year we did not meet that ELA goal. We made significant growth, but we had a pretty ambitious goal. We did increase quite a bit, but we didn't meet our growth in that TDA section. The second goal, we actually have moved that up to 60% of the students in grades 1 through 6 at Big Bend will meet or exceed that 50th percentile from fall to spring on FAST. Again, we want every student to be accounted for. Last year's goal we smashed, and that had to do with economically disadvantaged math students. We had 34% of our math students who, according to the state, free and reduced lunch met that proficiency mark. And this year, I think it was 51% of those students that we targeted met that growth. The reason I wanted to move away, not just because it was selecting only a small percent of our student population, but we wanted to make sure that this is something that we can share with staff. That is something that we can't technically share as far as, here's a teacher in 2nd grade, here are all the students that are free or reduced lunch. We can't share that information. So we try to hammer home with our Tier 1 instruction for the large group. And that could be with looking at the focus standards and making sure that we're bridging any gaps if there's anything from the grade level below. Again, forming those cognitive assessments, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of the action steps. So last year, 53% of the students in math scored that 50, and we're looking to move that up to 60%. Again, some of the same things, looking to have that small group instruction. With that, we do have our Tier 1, but we're trying to find opportunities with our Tier 2. Some of that could be that win time that Ron was talking about. That's the what I need now, otherwise known as RTI. We have different things that we can set up. We can use, this year we happen to qualify for title again because of our free and reduced lunch population. So in addition to the ESSER funds, in addition to the classroom teacher, our ALP teachers, everybody's hands on deck, our coaches, and we swoop in, and every 25 minutes throughout the day, there's a different grade level that's getting that RTI time. Again, teams will collaborate using the PLC process, and productive struggle, we're just trying to make sure that the kids really understand what they're doing with math. Sometimes you can give them a standard algorithm, and some of the students will get it, but we're trying to get them to learn how to decompose numbers with math, work those problems inside and out so that they have real-life applications and they can work through them and fully understand what they're doing. So we're just trying to get them to struggle a little bit, but to get to the end of the problem in more ways than one. And that's something that is like a puzzle, and that's something that I really enjoyed, and I think a lot of our staff. But the growth percentiles seem to be a cool activity for our staff. They've really rallied behind it. One of the activities, we have a quadrant. It's a 4-quadrant system, and you can show the students' achievement and their growth, and you can plot where all the students are. And that seems to be a big motivator for our staff to see where those kids lie. Of course, we want them to be high growth and high achievement. That's the end goal. Are there any questions?
Carolyn?
Are we keeping track of data as far as the wins that we're having with the ESSER, kids that have gone through ESSER funds and what their scores are because of ESSER funds or title? And what, because the ESSER funding is going to be coming up, and that's not just for Big Bend, for all of our schools too, because that's going to be coming up soon since that's coming to an end. And I've been a big advocate for that because one of my kids went through that and had huge growth. But are we keeping track of that? Can we keep track of that to see?
Yeah, we have been keeping data with something like that. It's what Ben always calls dirty data, right? Because anyone who touched that kid, obviously, besides the ESSER interventionist position, we can't trace it directly back, but we definitely do have data regarding those positions. At this point, we do not plan on recommending that the ESSER interventionist positions are renewed beyond the ESSER funds, because we do believe that the purpose for bringing them in with COVID, definitely we saw the benefit for that, but that we do have other options for filling those gaps at this point. Any teacher in our system would tell you it's very, very nice to have an extra certified teacher in the building. I just think financially, it is not something that we plan on recommending that those 5 individuals' contracts are renewed.
For the, maybe I was thinking about something different, the ESSER fund, the tutoring, like Mrs. Sarapata.
Oh,
like
sorry,
a
I
fifth
thought you
grade
meant the
teacher,
interventionist.
Those teachers that are doing the.
Yes, sorry.
tutoring. I think it's called something similar though, right?
So we do a Ready, Set, Go program that came about with our ESSER funds. That is a summer program where we get the students in that we know that we need to target and do some pre-teaching, reteaching, filling of skills gaps. We do plan on keeping that going. And the tutoring, Tom and I have definitely had discussions about
That's
that.
yeah,
yes,
tutoring is what I was thinking of.
yes,
Okay.
we do plan on supporting that.
Okay. Is that part of the algorithm as well? Like when you're looking at kids that have had successes, that have had the Ready, Set, Go, have had the tutoring, have had the intervention, have had title, that we're watching all those?
We definitely have data that would support the fact that those have been beneficial for us achievement-wise in the district. Yep. Any other questions?
I think we're good.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Finance and facility topics.
Yeah, refill your sodas now, folks. Here we go. All right, so I'm going to take us through our budget and tax levy. So typically when we have this meeting right now, it's we have 5 Mondays this month. So typically by the second Monday, we would have the information we get from the state about here's how much equalization aid you have. And we don't get that until Friday of this week. So we're just kind of in we're a week early. So everything I'm presenting right now is my best guess. We will finalize this. And so the board, you guys have a choice right now. So I'm giving you preliminary information. It's not quite final. Even when it says it's final, we need that last domino to fall. And the state says, here's your aid amount. So I've estimated that, and we'll get the final number here on Friday. So as we fast forward to the school board meeting later in this month, in 2 weeks, you'll be hearing the actual final 100% details are done at that time. And if you feel that when hearing that information, you're not quite ready, we could have a separate standalone school board meeting, virtual meeting. I think, Dr. Cook, you talked with them about that, correct? Or through email, perhaps? Dale and I spoke. Okay. So I'm giving you the best information possible at the moment. I'm going to talk to you about the tax levy here a little bit and present you with a different option, and that might cause you to think a little bit here about what your options are. But we are in a very, very good spot. I'm happy to report that. So I'll just start my presentation here, and off we go. Okay. So we'll talk about how we receive our revenue. So 80% of our school district budget is going to come through this formula. All right. So we have a revenue limit law that limits you as a school board, your tax levying authority. So the amount of money we get from state aid and property taxes is going to be limited by the revenue limit formula. So step 1, we figure out how much aid do we have. I'll estimate that tonight. Step 2, we'll figure out how much our revenue limit is, and then we can back into what the property tax amount will be for our citizens, okay? So equalization aid, last school year we had $53.5 million in shared costs. Those are costs that state government is going to share and reimburse us for a portion of those. So I'm estimating, and Erica, if you like to write down these numbers and guess my predictions, write that number down. $27.6 million is what I'm estimating the state government will provide our school district. All right. Vito's taking pictures. All right. There it is. So as we move forward here, as state government puts more money into the aid pot, that obviously increases aid and then therefore decreases property taxes. So more money has been placed into the pots in the next biennial budget that we're currently starting right now. So there's two other smaller forms of state aid, and then we ultimately add those up, and that's total state support is $27.7 million. So step one there is $27.7 million. That's state support. All right, so now we're going to calculate. I'm going to go back. Step two, let's figure out what is our limit of revenue. How much do we have to work with altogether? So all school districts have a different amount of money that they're provided. We've talked about that quite a bit here. And this school year, they moved the bottom from 10,000 to 11,000. For the 3 decades that we've been at the bottom of the state, we're still last, but we're not so last anymore. The gap is closing. So we take that $11,000 number, we multiply it by our third Friday counts, all right, and that's a 3-year average of 4,673 students times our 11,000 each, and we have an amount of $51.4 million. We have a couple adjustments that we add to that amount. The one I want to highlight is the voucher students. So we have a growing number of voucher students that went up by 52%. So ultimately, that $1.165 million is ultimately distributed onto our taxpayers. We collect the money, but we actually, I shouldn't even say that, the state collects it on our behalf and then forwards it onto the voucher schools. So it appears that it's a Mukwonago area school district tax levy, when in reality, it has nothing to do with our kids, our students, okay? So as that voucher student program grows, the tax levy amount will also grow, but that isn't really anything to do with us in our 8 schools. So altogether, we can collect $52.9 million according to the state. That's our revenue limit authority as a school district. So now we have step 2 accomplished, and we know that when we add aid and property taxes, that equals our revenue limit. We can back in to that final number. So the property tax levy that we will have for basic operations is 25.1, let's round that up to $25.2 million. Of the money that we get, 52.4% comes from the state, and the remaining 47.6% comes from our taxpayers. So what we'll do is we'll take the 27.7 of state aid and we put that into Fund 10. You as a school board have $25.1 million that you can place in one of 3 funds. Fund 10 is the general fund. Fund 38 is non-referendum debt. The school board can take up to $1 million of debt in a year, but you have to pay it back from your operating budget. And then you have Fund 41, which is the proactive way of setting money aside for future building needs. So what we proposed and talked about throughout the school year, I should say the whole calendar year building up to this year now, is that of the money that we have, we're going to take $800,000, place that into Fund 41 for future building projects, and take the remaining $24.4 million and put that in the general fund. School board has no debt in Fund 38, so there's no need to place any money there. Those tax levies are governed by revenue limits. You cannot increase those numbers without breaking the law, and I don't think we should do that. So we have 2 other tax levies that will all add into one number here. All right, so we'll levy $5.6 million to pay off our referendum debt associated with Mukwonago High School, and $150,000 to pay for our school resource officers and our small community education program. The Fund 39 debt levy is governed by district residents. When they pass a referendum, they give you permission to tax that value until you're done paying off your debts, okay? And then that last one there, that's your discretion. There's no limit at the moment on what you can levy for Fund 80 so long as the money you collect is going towards eligible expenses. So the proposed tax levy, the initial proposed tax levy, and I will give you an alternative here shortly, is to have our tax levy decrease by 0.2%, which would lead to a mill rate of $5.92. All right? The $5.92, that's going to be the lowest. I got a slide coming up here, but that'll be the lowest mill rate in our district's history. We're entering year 4 of our long-term tax levy strategy, so we, again, try to reduce that by 0.2%. So when residents of our district get their property tax bill at the end of the year, there's going to be 4 entities that tax. It's the county tech college, it's a K-12 school district that you live in, and then your local municipality, be it the village of Mukwonago or the town of Mukwonago, what have you, and then your county, Waukesha County. Okay, so when you add all those up, we're responsible for about, I'd say, 70% of that tax bill. So we like to keep that very stable, very steady, and then our residents, obviously, we all prefer that. Okay. All right, so our mill rate, as you can see, going back to 1993, that's the farthest one on the left. That's $17.58, quite a bit. We're down to almost less than a third of that value at $5.92. So our mill rate's never been better. Again, the mill rate is the rate of taxation per $1,000 of your house's value. So the initial proposal and the track that we've been on so far is we're looking to make a resolution here at the school board meeting here in 2 weeks, or as soon as you're comfortable, to have pass a resolution that says we're going to levy a tax in those amounts totaling $30.9 million. All right, so that's our baseline assumption right now. That's our baseline game plan. We can move that $5.6 million up or down. So if aid is good or not as good, and that pushes the operating tax levy up or down, we can counteract and balance that up by moving the Fund 39 levy up or down. So you can hit a target of your choosing, okay? It doesn't have to be negative 0.2%. You can do something else. It's up to you, okay? But this is the basic strategy that we've discussed so far. So right now I'm going to introduce one last thing. It typically has never been an issue in our school district because when the state biennial budget's written, this particular thing called the school levy tax credit hasn't moved. It hasn't changed. There hasn't been an influx of money for the budget writers and the state assembly and senators who create the budget. So it hasn't really had to be an issue, a topic of conversation, but something changed here. So I'm just going to bring this up for you right now. If we take a look at the 22-23 tax levy, I think what's most important, what I think, and I could be wrong, but I think what's most important to people in our district is what is my bottom line? What's my tax bill gonna be? All the ins and outs and all the other math like that stuff is important, but just at the end of the day, what is the bottom line? So there's something that affects that bottom line, and that is the school levy tax credit. So in the 22-23 school year, you can see that we have that first gold or yellow box is $36,022. That's the amount of, that's the levy, our district's tax levy that we distribute out to our 11 municipalities, okay? Before that value actually gets distributed to all 11 municipalities and the taxpayers inside, a school levy tax credit is deducted from there. So state government, when they write their biennial budget, they will allocate, there's two ways they can fund schools. One is to put money into the state aid pot. It goes through the equalization aid formula, and based on your property values relative to the rest of the state, are you property rich, are you property poor, you can get more or less aid, okay? Another way that they can put money into the schools, or to help pay for the schools, is to put money into the school levy tax credit. And that's distributed a little bit more uniformly. So of the $31 million that we levied last year, the state biennial budget at that time said we'll take $5.3 million off of that, and we'll basically give that as a tax credit, and then the remaining $25.7 million goes out as a tax levy. So that's the bottom line. From there, all of our residents ultimately contribute their share to that $25.7 million to operate our school district, our 700 employees, our 5,000 kids, our 8 buildings, and all that goes into it. So that $5.3 million came from a pot of $940 million, okay? And state government increased that number in our current biennial budget by 27%. So they went from $940 million to $1.195 billion. So that ultimately for us is going to give us another $1.5 million. So if you take a look at that school levy tax credit line, it goes from 5.3 million to 6.8. And it's going to affect the bottom line. So as we walk through the math of our tax levy, all right, you can see that the Fund 10 operating tax levy there, last year was $20.5 million, and now it's going to be 24.3. That is because we went from $10,016 per student to $11,000. So that is pushing that operating tax levy up. To counteract that, you can see that Fund 39 additional levy that we use to prepay debt and get rid of interest costs and get out of debt more quickly. We counteract that and we drop that down. And at the end of the day, we can do that because we have the leeway, the latitude, and then we can still target dropping our total tax levy, that middle gold cell there, to $30.9 million, which is a 0.2% decrease. Once that school tax levy credit is applied, the net tax levy becomes $24.1 million. So while we can control the 0.2%, the negative 0.2, when we take the knowledge of knowing what the school levy tax credit just did and what lawmakers put into that, taxes would go down by 6.2%. Okay, so the opportunity you have, and it's your call, and you may want more time to think about this. Maybe we need to talk about this more in 2 weeks. But this is kind of, I would have brought this to you had I known all this information and summarized it earlier, but I didn't have all this information until recently. What you could do if our goal was to control our school tax levy credit and focus on the bottom line is that you can see that Fund 39 additional levy in the previous scenario, it was at 2.5. You could levy $4 million there and increase that. And in essence, the middle gold bars, we go from last year to this year, you could increase the school levy, the school tax levy by 4.8% and still drop total taxes by our 0.2% goal. It's taking advantage of the school levy tax credit, taking that additional $1.5 million that lawmakers are going to allocate towards our school district, taking that and prepaying debt. Other districts around us are going this path, so I've been in communication with others, so this is the option here. And I hate to bring this up so late, but this is just the time that it's become known to us. So this is just an option. Eric, well, I let Dale call on you.
The school levy tax credit, is that guaranteed to be the same from year to year, or is it just every biannual budget?
Every biennial budget. So this year it grew, like I said, it grew 27% from 940,000 to 1.195 billion, and then I think another $200 or $300 million is going into it again next year. So that the math is all easier when they determine here's aid, put it through the general aid formula. They pulled that back and said we're going to do it this route. So again, if you just focus on the, so here's your opportunity here. You could really choose a number somewhere. If we take a look at this scenario here, which is what I presented to you first, if we just stay the current path, taxes will drop as much as 6.2%. All right, and then if you want to close that gap and keep taxes steady and continue your habit of prepaying debt, shedding hundreds of thousands of future interest costs, this is a way to do that. Okay?
Sherry, can you talk to the microphone, please?
So looking at the referendum that we're proposing, because of the difference in the $11,000 per student, the building that we could build is lesser than what we can build now. Went from 94 to 55, correct?
Correct.
Am I understanding that correct? So for our taxpayers, that means even for our basic referendum, our taxes are going to go up more than we had hoped. Is that correct?
From what I was thinking back in March, before we had any news of us going from 10,000 to 11,000, yeah.
Okay. Yep. So keeping that in mind, what would be our best strategy for our taxpayers this year in hopes that they would give us permission to increase their taxes next year?
So I can't speak for all taxpayers. Obviously, I am one myself, and I'd like to think of myself as fiscally responsible. I better be. So a stable tax bill is appreciated. The fluctuations, that go from year to years, I don't think that's desired by anybody. So you really have an opportunity to keep your tax bill stable, slightly reduce it, You could even just moderately reduce that. If you said, you know what, instead of 0.2%, let's go minus 2%. Now, one thing I didn't include here, and just give me a second here, I'm going to go down one slide here. So to summarize this here, I'm going to try to add one more piece of information here that, again, the school levy tax credit went from $940 million to $1.195 billion. That's going to increase our school levy tax credit share by $1.5 million. Again, you could increase your additional levy and take advantage of that $1.5 million and get rid of future interest costs, get rid of your current debt more quickly. Also, as property values throughout the district, we forecasted they were going to go up 5%. They actually went up like 10.1. Of that 10.1, some of that's like a paper gain that says, hey, your house used to be worth this, and now it's worth that. And that's not really revenue that people are receiving, but that's on paper, your house is valued more. We have $56 million in net new approximately $56 million in net new construction. So think of that as new buildings, new houses, subdivisions, you know, that are going in. So throughout the district, those $56 million of property values is going to, and we haven't talked about this, that by itself, all things equal, will drop the tax bill by 1% for everybody because there's more hands on deck to help pay whatever tax levy amount that you're ultimately creating. So really, at the end of the day, there's kind of, you know, there's two options, but you could pick something in the middle too, all right? So ops tax scenario one is really what we've talked a lot about throughout the entire calendar year up to this point. And again, that's dropping our school tax levy by 0.2% when you factor in the school levy tax credit that blew up quite a bit. The net effect would be a 6.2 to 7.2% decrease. You could keep it stable, prepaid debt, and just continue that strategy and still drop taxes. So really a win-win-win all around. So you could increase the tax levy, but the bottom line, again, that I'll go back to, the bottom line that people look at, what is my overall bill from one year to the next, can still go down.
So Tom, we have paid down debt for the last how many years?
3 years. We refinanced. We've paid off early debt 2 years now, and we're on track to do it again.
And you're saying we can keep a stable tax bill and still pay down debt, correct?
Yep. This is your chance to pay down even more debt.
I don't see why we wouldn't.
Jake?
What's the rate on the current debt?
Interest rates? Yeah. Low 2s, high 1s, very low.
That's why we wouldn't pay it off.
So some of the you know, when you have 7 to 8 years worth, you know, there's an interest drop payment every year. And we can bring you, like if you want us to forecast that and say, hey, before we choose anything, you want to see the numbers, my guess is you would. I can bring some of that information for you in 2 weeks. But interest is interest, and you can pay it off and get rid of it.
If we levy it, do we have to pay off? Got me. If we levy it, do we have to pay off the debt now?
No.
And we use it to pay off the debt if the referendum passes?
Yes.
Or keep that lower?
Yes.
So instead of paying the 1 or 2%, not have to pay it 7 or 8%?
Yes.
That's what
Got you, homie.
We need to consider.
One way or another, if the community says you can take on debt for these said things, the money you collect can go towards those debts, current debt or future debt. Obviously, if there's no future debt, you just take it and apply it to what you have then. So, sorry for the curveball there, guys, but school levy tax credit hasn't changed much in years and years, and here it is, it changed, and I would like to have gotten you this information earlier, but there it is. All right, so that's the tax levy. We'll look to ultimately approve this in 2 weeks, and if you're not comfortable quite yet, then we'll maybe have a special meeting on Monday, October 30th, virtually perhaps, and I'll let you guys figure that out. We'll see where we are, okay? Last thing then, we're going to pass a second resolution here, and that's going to just approve the budget. So each fund that we have several funds, and we have a new fund up there, Fund 99. So it's the first year we have that. That's our cooperative program with Muskego, with our tech ed program and our grants that we work with Muskego for our kids in the trades. But to quickly go through these so you can see what our beginning fund balance is, again, that's a snapshot of where we are on July 1st, okay? Then throughout the course of the year, we have our receipts or our revenues, we have our expenditures, and then our predicted ending fund balance. I'll quickly go through each fund here. Fund 10 is obviously, it's our biggest fund. If you take a look, we have $20.1 million in the bank as of that date, but when I show you our cash flows projections, it bottoms out in November because all of our tax revenues start to come in January, February. So to avoid short-term borrowing, we need that number to be about where it is right there as of July 1st, knowing that it's going to go down, down, down every 2 weeks that we have a payroll for our 700 employees. That number gets whittled away at until we start to collect our tax revenues from our municipalities. But you can see that our Fund 10 is balanced. We have $64.1 million in and out, so that's a break-even budget. This is built around the salaries that we've worked, negotiated, and approved here for all of our employees, our teachers, our support staff. Our health savings is yet to be realized, but we kept our rates flat from where they were last year into this year, rather than paying, remaining fully insured and increasing those rates by 35%. We held the line on that, and I hope to come back here in a few months and tell you that we're saving money, and I anticipate that we will. Transportation rates are up 9%. This includes, within those expenditures, $1.1 million transferring into Fund 46. So again, at the end of the school year, we say, how did everything go? Can we set some money aside to pay for future building projects when roofs come due, boilers, chillers, things of that nature? So we're in a great spot. So since I mentioned Fund 46, I'll jump ahead there. You can see that we're transferring in $1.1 million, but there's a little bit extra. There's almost $3 million in revenues there for Fund 46 because that accounts for the interest earnings as well for the money that's an investment there. Okay. Fund 21 is donations. Those are money comes in and out as we spend the money as donors donated. They say we'd like to restrict these donations in certain ways, and we honor those donations. So you can see that our expenses and our revenues match each other. Special education is really the same budget that we approved at the annual meeting where revenues equal expenditures. Fund 27 really only has about $4 million of revenues, and the remaining $7 million comes from a Fund 10. So whatever Fund 27 can't pay for, Fund 10 picks up the tab. But revenues equal expenses, and there is no fund balance at the beginning and end of each year. Referendum debt, you can see we have $6.2 million in reserves. We're going to add 5.7. The least amount we have to pay is 3.1. Come May, we can get together and see where we are, see what's going on with potential referendum, and we can choose to pay more money off there if we'd like to.
What would the rate be right now?
So
if we were to finance a project?
About 7.
No, 5.25 to 5.5.
It's a little lower for something like that.
Yep.
You gotta be bigger.
I need to talk to your loan guy.
Public bonding might be a little bit cheaper than a private loan at, Sharkey's Loans.
About a 3% difference.
Yep, yep. All right. So Fund 41 is our capital. 41 and 46 serve the same purpose. They both help pay for building costs. So Fund 41 is where we set money proactively at the beginning of the school year aside. You can see we're adding just under $300,000 in fund balance there. And then Fund 46 is where we retroactively take a look at how the budget go. Can we set some money aside? So we have a number of projects that we have coming out of Fund 46. We are paying for a new roof at Clarendon. The whole roof is coming off. That's $1.8 million. Mukwonago High School has a new section of roof that's now due. We could have done it at the referendum, but we got about 8 more years of life out of that rather than replacing it at that time. So whenever we can squeeze extra life out of it, we do. That's $1.9 million. We have $750,000 earmarked and set aside to start replacing our HVAC controls throughout the district. We have our health clinic that's now completed for $600,000. That's we'll have final numbers for us there shortly, and a couple other bathroom modifications and other work in some of our buildings. So those are the expenditures in Fund 46. Fund 50, you can see we have $2.5 million in revenues and $2.9 million in expenses. The U.S. Department of Agriculture says you have too much fund balance, Mukwonago. They're the ones who give us the money, and then they criticize us for having the money. So we're just doing what we got to do. We held the line on lunch prices. We did not increase those. So in a way, those buying lunches are buying reduced rate lunches at this time, and we'll walk that fund balance back. Because we can only have 3 months operating expenses in that fund balance. So we're Subsidizing lunches because we're told to, so that's what we did. So lunches are a little cheaper. Fund 60 are student activities. Those are for our student groups that are, extracurriculars, sports teams, band groups. Then when they raise the money, they keep the money. They do the work for it, so they get to choose how they spend it. And you can see that revenues and expenses match. Same thing with Fund 72, scholarship trust funds. Money in equals money out. Our OPEB trust fund is our other post-employment benefits. We're going to talk about that later on tonight, but you can see that revenues and expenses almost match each other. We're doing a new actuarial study right now. I anticipate we'll be fully funded there, so all future liabilities, when teachers retire in 10 years or 20 years, the money is already there, and future school boards aren't going to have to cut costs because you guys didn't proactively think ahead and say, let's start saving for our future liabilities and not just kick the can. So we're in a great spot there. Fund 80 is our community service fund. Again, that's money for our school resource officers at the middle school and high school. And then Fund 99, as I said earlier, is our new fund that accounts for our expenses and revenues in our cooperation with Muskego High School and our tech departments. All right, so that's the budget. Any questions I can answer for you? You okay?
Yep.
All right. So we'll look to take action then in 2 weeks. If we need more time, then we'll go from there, okay?
Thanks, Tom. No student service topics. Moving on to action items.
Wait, hold up.
Oh, sorry.
So yeah, we should circle back to those two transportation items that we discussed earlier during citizens' comments. So take it away, school board.
You normally set the routes?
No,
Or
so
you normally work with and figure out the spots and stuff like that when it comes to the bus routes?
every year those are reevaluated because there's a number of kids who graduate and no longer need a stop, or there's new kids who move in and a stop is needed to be added within our guidelines that we established. We try to make sure that there's 20 or less students per stop. If there's more students than that, we'll create additional stops. Dousman Transport, we've been working with them. Hank's Transportation was their predecessor, and we've been working with them since, I say, 1941 or 1946. So the folks there, Alan Buchholz in particular, and his staff with Katrina Kine have generations of experience. So they know our streets, they know our neighborhoods, they know everything, quite honestly, about all the cul-de-sacs, all the busy highways, where to put the routes, what the history of those routes are. So they go through that. They have our guidelines that we use to establish, routes, minimizing entering cul-de-sacs, dead ends, private drives, setting up bus stops that are, within 0.5 miles if you're an elementary student, up to 0.75 miles walking as a middle school, high school student. They understand all that, and then they design it and build it as best that they can. Once we design that and launch those, then the parents have an opportunity to say, I have a concern, here's what it is. Then I evaluate that with Dousman, and I'll make a preliminary decision based on the marching orders that I've historically gotten from the school board. Sometimes we make changes, and sometimes, the answer is no. I understand every concern that comes in, and at times that they make sense, and it's, hey, you're driving by my house, why can't you just stop? It's like, well, we're going to do that for one, and then we're going to do it for 400. Everyone's going to want that deal. And so some things are precedent setting in nature, and that's for your judgment on how you want to do these things. So I know once upon a time, for old timers that spent a lot of years on this board, and Erica and Cherry have better knowledge than I do, that once upon a time we had a lot of stops. We were stopping all the time, and the school board made a concentrated effort to say, look, we got to speed up our bus routes. We can't stop at every driveway to pick up and drop off, so we got to have people start walking to a stop that's reasonable, and not every subdivision has sidewalks. But, you know, my neighborhood's an example. It's 25, it's residential, there are no sidewalks, and the expectation is a parent gets their kid to and from the bus stop. So we can't always guarantee curbside pickup. That'd be great if we could, right? But we'd have to buy a lot more buses, and every bus would be half full because time's always an issue.
90 square miles, I believe our district is, correct?
Yep. So, you know, when you think about some kids, I know, Eric, I think your kiddos were getting picked up at 6:20, 6:25 in the morning to get to school by 7:30. So I don't think we can start picking up kids at 6 a.m. in some instances because they'd be on the bus for an hour and a half. So we try to keep it to about 45, 50 minutes tops, and that should be rare that we have kids on a bus that long. So all those things go into it. And so.
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
Specifically, the second one, County Road L, the request or the appeal is to turn into a subdivision. Has Dousman, they're usually here to tell us how long that turnaround would take, if the turnaround is feasible. What is the situation for that particular request?
You could add it. I've checked in, and I preemptively asked the questions here since we didn't have too many concerns here to work with tonight. If you wanted to have this bus route enter that, from a timing perspective, could it work? Yes, it could work. I guess the question you just have to think about then is when the next set of families says, I want you to come into my neighborhood.
Here's the deal, Tom. I sat on the Buildings, Ground, and Transportation Committee years ago, BTG,
yeah.
and there was a reason that all of the power of transportation appeals was given to you. Because nobody here on this board actually likes to look at a parent and say, sorry, we can't do that for you. Because we would want that for us as well. So just know that we have walked in all of these shoes with you guys. If I remember correctly, there was a request for another pod stop made last year for Eagleville, or an additional stop not far from here. And we said no to that one as well. And this is as an Eagleville alum who had to drive 15 minutes to get to a pod stop. We have not made that exception in the past. And I actually thought, did we discuss talking about the route that is in place for the boundary lines for Eagleville at that time? And I don't know if we ever got around to it, wondering if that should stay. Because that's always the argument. Well, there's a route that picks up over there, but everybody else has pod stops. Should it just all be pod stops? So I think that needs to potentially be addressed for discussion, because it's a district-wide charter. We don't have a boundary line, or maybe we need to readdress that policy. That's just my thought, because this does come up continually. So I think it's fair to continue with pod stops, in my opinion, because while you might have many children at your stop right now, in 3 more years, that could be completely different, and then we're readjusting our pod stop policy every 3, 4, or 5 years. I'd be curious about the LO one, only because I know that I drive that road and it's very, very fast. However, when it gets our middle school and high school students, we do have an expectation that they are old enough to stay far back off the road to be able to watch, and I do, like Tom, to back up what you said, our school policy says that it is a parent's responsibility to get their child to the bus and off the bus. That time in between does not fall on us. We are responsible once they're on our bus to keep them safe or do our best from there on out. So in terms of waiting for the bus, getting to the bus stop, that ultimately, per our policy, lands on parental responsibility or whoever can get them there. Doesn't mean I always like it. I would love to say yes to everybody. But our district is full of dark, no sidewalk streets. Like 90% of our district is like that. So we've been holding the line pretty consistently since I've been on the board. So if I wasn't clear, I am not for any changes at this point.
Greg?
I agree with you, Erica, that I wish I could change every one of these. We can't. 90 square miles, it's almost impossible. And everyone wants to say it's a safety issue. True safety issues, we're going to say, wait a minute, if this is a safety issue, we're going to change it. Some of these aren't safety issues, it's just inconvenience. That's my opinion.
You know, I understand when a parent says, you know, it's a safety issue. There's no bus stop or bus route that's immune from everything. It's just the nature of driving a car or walking on the street. So there's that balancing act of doing what you can, keeping the buses moving. Again, if we picked up every single kid at the end of their driveway, we'd minimize it all, but the reality is that you just never could logistically ever do that. So,
Do we have a policy on speed limit? Like, do we allow students to stand on roads with speed limits over 45? Like, is that in policy or is that,
No.
it's not in policy?
no.
Jerry?
Can I ask why these two came? Did you say no, and they are bringing it further up the food chain, or?
Yep. So when I make an initial, denial, I say, if you'd like to appeal this, just let me know. A lot of times folks will say, I'd like to talk to your boss, and you 9 are my boss. You too, big guy. So I understand that and folks aren't always happy with my decision, but given the experience I've gotten along the way, Eric, I remember you saying, yeah, but it is dark. Take a flashlight. There's kids that have to get picked up on County Road L because that's, they live on a house on L. They're not in a neighborhood, so it's not unheard of. So, just all the things I've heard from the Mary Diamores and Cherry Winchowkis and Erica Connors along the way here, I've been given those marching orders, and not everybody's happy with that. I completely understand that. I get it. Not every part of this job is great, but this is one of the, it's kind of hard to say, hey, the answer is no, but if you want to appeal it, and these two folks decide to be here.
Just want to say, we did spend tens of thousands of dollars putting cameras on our buses, and been involved with the police departments and trying to ticket people and keep our students safe. But my opinion is, I'm going to agree with Erica. We just can't keep making exceptions for everybody, or our kids would never get to school. It's going to add on a lot of time to our whole system. You had your comments, so now we're just going to discuss it. Sorry. There's going to be another citizen's comment.
If you want to reach out to me, through email, give me a call. Jeremy, we can talk, okay?
There's going to be more citizens' comments, too, at the end of this meeting.
I'd like that.
It's after we reconvene from open session, there is another section here for citizens' comments, if you want to comment then.
Okay. So if I'm hearing you right, then board is you have to stick with the denial of both?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right, I think that's it for finance facilities then.
Okay, moving on to action items. Hires, retirements, and resignations.
We have none this evening.
None, okay. All right, I'd like to make a motion and move on to executive session.
I will second.
Crosby?
Yes.
Erica?
Yes.
Jake?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Dale?
Yes.
Vito?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Greg?
You're
Yes.
always second.
Jerry?
All right, we'll take a 5-minute break. Citizens' comments, if you'd like to come back up and talk, please feel free to.
Nope.
Still got 3 minutes, Dale?
Yes, 3 minutes.
3 minutes, and then after 30 seconds, I'll give you a warning.
Here, take this one.
All right, we'll do this one. Sorry, 3 minutes, go ahead and hack. So I heard your comments earlier, and I appreciate it, and thank you. So I got a bit of a rebuttal, though, all right? So number one, I'm going to say this is not precedent setting. I understand what precedent setting is. I'm a union president for Alpa Airlines at Colette Air. You know, you have 2 people right here out of 90 square miles. Is that what it was? I believe it was. So, you know, that's not very much. We're not asking for much change. Excuse me. Just had Culver's and it's all.
That'll do it.
Well, my daughter talk for a second here. She's got experience from the very same bus stop. Now, when she was there, it was understandable, and that's why we didn't come see you folks, because it didn't make sense, right? I mean, there were 3 or 4 students that were going up there. Now there's just one, just my son. So there's not a pod of people or anything like that. It's one. There's no lights. There's no sidewalk. There's nothing, you know. And I understand we live in the country, but there's nothing up there. What we do have, though, is we got a highway. You know, people are supposed to be going 65. I'm sure nobody's on their phone. Nobody's drinking their coffee. Nobody's swerving lanes or anything like that. Lord knows that doesn't happen, you know. But what we do have is, you know, we get the sun that comes right up that road, you know, or east-west, right there. That sun comes right up and blinds you every single time. You whip around that corner, there it is, and there's the bus stop. So, Emily?
So as he mentioned,
Talk to the microphone, please, Emily.
oh, sorry. My name's Emily, and so I've had multiple occasions where I've almost been hit by the bus. I still remember them to this day because it was very scary, and I don't want that to happen to my brother or any other student, and I think from a safety concern, it would be a substantial difference to bring the stop into the neighborhood. It would be a lot safer. It would be closer. I know that is a convenience thing, and you don't want to change things for convenience, but just as a concern, I know other students who have as well just had to call the bus company and got their stop changed, but we have had to further press the issue to bring it here, and I do feel like this is a stop where we are one of the only students still that are on this route that are picking up on the highway versus all the other stops on this highway are actually picking up inside the neighborhoods or in closer locations to the house that are safer.
30 seconds.
Thank you. And I wanted to say, if it was precedent setting, you know, the stop right after us, they asked for the same thing, and they've got it.
Can
Matthew,
you verify that?
Matthew gets picked up at 6:30 in the morning, so it's bright and early. And we're not asking for curbside. I had to walk both ways uphill in the snow myself, so he'll still be walking to the bus stop. I promise you that.
Time's up. Thank you.
So there's no question and answer? No?
No, it's frustrating for us too.
Sorry.
Okay. I'm just curious. I didn't know how the proceedings go.
Your first school board meeting, sir?
It's been a while, yes.
Well, come on back in 2 weeks. We'd love to have you.
Oh.
I know that
Come on up.
They're riveting, aren't they?
All right. So my name is Lisa Klausing, and since I heard you guys talk, I had a few other things that I wanted to say. You know, and you were talking about the policy with Eagleville and having the pod stops. And I guess I would have to ask what exactly that policy is, because that is what I heard 6 years ago when I asked about a stop, that it was only the elementary schools and a couple stops in Eagle. Well, then 2 years ago, I think, is when it went down to one bus. And then I found out that it is stopping in, I believe it's either Miners 2 or Miners 1, which is the subdivision behind us. And it is pulling in and stopping there. So then it's like, well, what's the difference between that stop and our stop? Because those kids either go to Rolling Hills or Clarendon. Why aren't they required to keep it at a pod stop too? Because the bus ride, I think, is 40, 45 minutes. So you're talking about increasing the bus time. So it's like, well, now my kids, you know, they can't walk and they're on a longer ride. I also heard there was another stop added in Eagle this year, which I'm wondering, is that even in district? You know, are those out of district kids? And I also, just for this process, I think it should be more clear, because I started asking about this bus stop last spring and was always only told to talk to the bus company, you know. I never knew that it was anything that the school board, you know, needed to have anything to do with. So, yeah, I think that's it. You got anything else on there? I mean, I guess it would just be, if it is policy to only stop at the schools, then that should be the policy for everyone. Because to my knowledge right now, that's not what it is, and it is making the bus stop longer than, you know. Because I guess, you know, for me right now, what I'm asking for is that if there are these other stops, then, you know, turning into our street to get them off a busy road is, you know, 1 minute. So, and we do have a lot of kids that would be able to use it, so.
Yeah, and then just clarifying, like, if there needs to be, for Eagle, if there's multiple stops in Eagle, this is a Mukwonago school district, so they need one unified stop in Eagle the way that we're asked to do it here, in order to reduce the amount of time on the bus. So if we're gonna follow policy, let's follow policy, whatever that clear-cut directions are. Get out to the parents, because it sounds like there's multiple stops in Eagle.
30 seconds.
Okay, multiple stops. So if it needs to go just to school, then it goes to Clarendon, Rolling Hills section, one stop in Eagle to the school. And that's it.
Thank you. All right, any new business? If not, meeting's adjourned.
Oh, I did want to say
Oh,
one thing.
what?
I had the honor to give a tour Saturday morning of the high school, some class of 1983 people, really old. And I have to tell you, it was pretty phenomenal. The kids were decorating for homecoming. It was awesome. And the 1983 grads couldn't believe what a great optical vision they had from the referendum to the new school. It's pretty amazing. And then we went down to the choir orchestra area, and they were practicing for the Godspell play on November 9th, 10th, and 11th, I believe. You should go. You should buy tickets, because a bunch of people in the class of 83 did the original Godspell in 1983. So it's been 40 years since we did Godspell, and it was pretty awesome. And I got to tell you, if the public could go through our schools, they would appreciate what we're trying to accomplish. There's no doubt. That's my report. Thank you very much.
Nice. Any other new business? All right, we are adjourned.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
You don't need to.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay.
We're done? We're done. We're out of here.
Aye.
Okay.